continue down this path, uh, these terms, these slangs or whatever, and then like concepts that are in Web3, which are quite new and they're not present in Web2. So before we begin that, let's understand why we are learning this, why we are talking about Web3, and why we are, uh, going on this journey. So, uh, as you know, like Web3 is the fastest growing skill, and is the like hottest thing there is in the job market today. And all of the Fortune 500 companies and more are looking into Web3 and how they can incorporate this in their particular fields, and how they can use Web3 and blockchain to enhance their working. So blockchain developers are ever growing, and their need is ever growing. Here we have like basically put down some market trends that are, happening in the field of Web3. So according to McKinsey, which is like a big firm, like a big finance firm, they say that the metaverse economy will exceed 5 trillion by 2030. And in 22 itself, around $120 billion were spent in Web3 in metaverse segment itself. And across the globe, Asia, US, all rest of the globe, it's growing at a very fast pace. Like as you can see, it's 2 times faster than anything else out there. Uh, so all of this is like the market trends that are happening. These are just big numbers, but the reality is blockchain is growing, and it's going to be the need for tomorrow, and it's the new thing which is coming up. And uh, students in their college years right now should for sure know about it and keep on learning about blockchain and Web3, because the next 5-10 years it's going to be the next big thing, right? One of the next big things. uh, Here we have put down some values of how the market scenario for job is. As you can see that blockchain engineers, the growth has increased 517% in the last 3 years. And as you can see, all of the other things have just been, below 100. Like just security engineer is 132. Rest, everything is going down. So, so the need of today is up and coming blockchain engineers, right? And right now there are a pretty less number of developers out there, just 18,000 developers, and the need is pretty high. Plus, blockchain developers are being paid uh, fairly higher amounts than the other developers. By other developers, we mean like the like all of the rest developers who are not into blockchain. So as you can see, this graph shows uh, the number of developers in each field, right? Moving forward, this is like a scenario of like uh, how like software was built in past. Like basically, uh, in the old days, they used to build desktop rigid OS. So it was DOS, Windows, Linux, Mac, all of those things. Then the time came where it became mobile OS. So Windows Mobile came in, iOS came in. Then it became cloud as a OS. So it was AWS, Azure, which gave you freedom to build websites of your own and everything. But now it's blockchain as an OS and communities. So basically Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, where you build dApps on their network. And by dApps I mean decentralized applications. So the evolution is from the old OS to the new blockchain as a OS, and it's led by communities, right? It's led by people coming together and building together as a whole. Now, why is Web3 important, right? So Web3 has three pillars basically. So the three important pillars are decentralization, transparency, and immutability, right? These three pillars are the ones that are, the need for today. I would say because people right now, you would have heard in the news about cookies policies, people using your user data, how you can keep your data safe, and how big corporations are using your data and selling it for money and everything and ads and everything. So the need for today is transparency, decentralization, and immutability, and which are all three almost solved by uh, Web3. And by Web3 I mean blockchain as a technology, right? So that is the main components that make Web3 important in today's date. Uh, and also a huge number of high profile companies, say Fortune 5000 companies, are hiring blockchain professionals because of their exponential growth, right? And it's being adopted by a large number of people. And there is a need for experts in this field because, as we told you before, there are only around 18,000 developers across the globe right now, and the number which is required is much much higher. So there is a lot of potential in this field in today's date. That is all like what's happening in the market and why is Web3 important. But what is actually Web3, right? We have been talking Web3, but what is Web3? So as you can see here, we have broken down Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, right? So Web 1 was the old days, right? Where you could only like read stuff. People you only had like their own PC and they could only read files. And this was the day of Yahoo and Explorer, Internet Explorer, and uh, the information economy basically. But then came Web 2, right? And this shift was the user never knew the shift, right? When they moved from Web 2 to Web 1 to Web 2, right? And they actually had no like clue when the shift happened, right? So what happened in Web 2 is basically users started putting out data and started generating data. And by data I mean content, right? And this became a to and fro system, right? Basically, so people started generating data which went into the cloud, and whatever other people were generating, they could see, right? So this was the time of Facebook, YouTube, uh, Instagram, all of those Web2 applications, and this was a platform economy. But now what is coming up is Web3, right? Where you can read, write, and own the data you generate. By own, I mean you own your own data. Uh, for example, here, let's think about your data as in like you have some particular data on a chain. Example, Ethereum, right? And you say that today, like today you got up and you're like, oh, I'm not liking Ethereum anymore. So I want all of my data to be moved to say Polygon. So that you can do. But today's date in Web 2, all of that data is centrally owned by big corporations and you have no right to it. Basically, they can use your data as in how they like, and you really can't do much about it. But in Web3, you own your data. So as I told you, these are the pointers. Web 1 began in the early 1980s, 1990s, and uh, at that time it was just simple browsing, retrieving information. Web pages were static, they weren't that interactive. But then came Web2, which was like early 2000s, right? Where user generated the content. It was the social media, web applications were interactive. But the major issue that came up as well with it was that big corporations started using your data, started stealing your data, and using it for their own good. For that, the Web3 came in, right? So Web3 is known as the decentralized web, and it is the latest era of the internet, and it's still emerging. It's not there yet. It's still in this early days, but it's emerging, right? And it's based on principles of decentralization, blockchain technology, cryptography, cryptocurrency. All of those terms we'll learn as in as and when we go forward, right? And what Web3 does is it allows for greater privacy, security, and control over your personal data, which are the need of today, right? As I told you, uh, like the need for today, for the today's generation is they want privacy, right? They want security, they want the control over their personal data. We don't want other corporations to use our data, right? That is how Web3 helps us, right? The internet is evolving, right? Decentralized, permissionless, trustless internet will change the consumer behavior. And what that means is that we will get privacy, trust, and transparency as and when we start incorporating Web3 in our daily lives, right? Ownership of data is being demanded by creators and platforms, right? So basically, the content generators out there are saying that we want ownership of our data now. We don't want big corporations to use our data. We don't want them to use our crowd for their own good, right? So what is decentralization? In a blockchain network, decentralization means that there's a spread of computers in a network which are connected with each other, and they work together to record and validate transactions. What I mean by this is I'll show you by a figure. As you can see, multiple computers are linked together and they work together uh, in a decentralized manner to basically share data within each other. Whereas in a centralized server, what happens is there's a central server and your data is connected to that server and all of the information is stored there. But in the decentralized network, all of the data is owned by the network. So, say this is computer one, this is computer two. The data which is stored in computer one will also be stored in computer two. So everyone will have the same data, and no one person will have the ownership of that. It will be owned by the network. Basically a tabular differentiation between centralized and decentralized. So there's no third party involvement in decentralized. Control stays with the user. It's less prone to hack and data leaks because there's no one central entity that has to be hacked. It is a network of computers which need to be hacked, and which is in today's date impossible because the computational power required is not there yet. So there's no single point of failure. Easy of Ease of use, still not that easy right now because of the intricacies that one person needs to know, right? Uh, as you probably know, Web3, the journey is not that easy. There is a lot of information out there, but a single person, if he or she starts their journey, they probably get confused where to start and what to do. That's why we have created this, interactive and intuitive uh, course, I would say, so that it makes your journey easier and fruitful as and when we go, because this is we have broken down each concept into smaller parts, and basically we give we provide it to you as a flow so that you understand each and every concept clearly, right? Censorship, I mean, Web3 can't, you can't really censor anything because not a single entity owns your data. It is owned by the network. So nobody has a say or has a power to do anything to your data, and it can't be censored. Payment services, I mean, Web3 payments require no personal data and can't prevent payments. Like, for example, in a central world, what could happen is a bank might, you know, reject your payment, or they could say you can't send money to this X bank account. But in Web3, you can do as you feel because it's controlled by network. It's open for everyone, right? Uh, we'll move forward to what is a blockchain, right? We have been talking about blockchain for a while now, and let's understand in depth is what is a blockchain. So basically, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information, right? What I mean by this is imagine like blocks of data, right? So imagine these are blocks one, two, three, and these contain data, right? So there will be transactions, names, ledgers, database, right? And these are connected to each other via these hashes, right? So a hash is nothing but a basically a code, I would say, like a unique number code which is given to a block to basically identify it. So this hash 1z8f is been given to number 1, right? So now when anybody enters that hash, they know that it's associated to number 1 blockchain. Now that we have so how do we connect these, right? So now another block is created, say number 2, right? And its hash is something like 6b8 6bq1, right? But what it does is it stores the previous block's hash as well. So as you can see, previous hash is also stored here, is 1zf8f, right? Which is this one. So as you can see that it has its own hash and the previous block's hash as well in its information. So as you check this block, you will see this hash, and then you can check this block, and then you will see another previous hash, and then you can check that block. Therefore, making it into a chain. That's why it's called a block chain, right? A lot of information, a lot of blocks connected to each other via hashes is a chain of blocks, right? So these are the pointers here. A blockchain is a digital database or a ledger that is completely open to everyone. It is distributed among the nodes of a peer-to-peer network. As I showed you before, that it's basically distributed in in all of the nodes here, right? Node 1 will have the same ledger, node 2 will have the same ledger, and it is open to anyone to participate. So basically, once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it cannot be changed. What I mean by here is if you have, if say block 1 is created and its hash is created, and then another block 2 is created and its hash is created, then if you change some data inside that, the hash of that block will change as well. So this 6b8, 6bq1 will change into something else, say ABCD or whatever. So what will happen is the blocks in front of it, which have the hash of this block is stored in them, which is 6bq1, won't be able to find the hash of this block, right? Because it's been changed. And then the change in the hash will notify the network of some, ill practice happening or some hacks happening, and the network can quickly rectify that. So, what are the properties of blockchain? So blockchain is programmable. What I mean here is you can create code uh, to perform activities as per your liking, which are called smart contracts in the case of blockchain. Blockchain is distributed. That is, the network participants have a copy of the ledger, and it's transparent, right? It is open for everyone. Blockchain is secure because all of the records that are put in blockchain are encrypted via cryptography. Blockchain is immutable, that is, all of the records that are put there can't be changed. It is anonymous. You don't need any identity like a Web2 identity to participate in the blockchain. It is timestamped. By timestamped, I mean every transaction which happens on blockchain has a timestamp to it so that everybody knows what happened when. It is unanimous. By unanimous, I mean that all of the network, right, the participants in or in the network have to agree to a particular thing for it to become the norms, right? So that, like, if anything, if any single party wants to rule or basically, have a higher say, they won't have that because in case of blockchain, everything is every single person is basically uh, equal, right? Everybody has a say in it, and all of the participants have the say uh, in any while validating any transaction. So let's see some myths about blockchain which are out there. Like blockchain is Bitcoin. I mean, it is so not true. I mean, Bitcoin is just one cryptocurrency, and it's one of the applications of blockchain, right? Blockchain in itself is a much larger technology and can be used for many other applications. Blockchain is better than traditional databases. Uh, I mean, that is somewhat true, but it's still not up to the mark which where it can perform better, right? It is still in its early days, and it has to up, upgrade a lot to be better than traditional databases. We'll move forward from that and see what a blockchain architecture is right now, right? So basically, these are terms that are common in a blockchain architecture when we talk about its architecture, right? So a node is basically a computer which is uh, a participating uh, in the blockchain network, and basically it has an independent copy of the whole blockchain. Then comes transactions. So basically, the smallest building block of a blockchain is its transactions, right? And that's what a a block stores is transactions, right? And what is a block? A block is basically a collection of transactions which is distributed to all of the nodes, right? A chain is basically a sequence of blocks in a specific order. Then comes miners. So basically, specific nodes which perform the block verification are called miners. Then comes consensus. So consensus is basically a set of rules that the nodes have to carry out to perform some specific task in blockchain. Let's see how a blockchain works, right? So say a person, like a transaction is requested, like a person requests a transaction. Say I want to send money to Naman, right? What happens is that transaction is represented in a block, right? A block is created that represents the transaction. Then that block is sent to every node in the network. So basically, all of the participants of the network get that block to verify. Once that node, once all of the nodes validate that transaction, it is it is validated, right? And the nodes receive a reward for their proof of work. Basically, the computational power that they spent on validating that transaction, for that they get a reward. Then that block is added to the existing blockchain, and then the transaction is complete. So, what are the different versions of blockchain? So, previously, the first blockchain version was 1.0 was Bitcoin. It was introduced in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is nothing but a digital currency that is stored, created, and transferred using a digital system called blockchain. Then came blockchain 2.0, right? So there were some challenges in version 1, that there was a lack of scalability of the networks, and you really couldn't make applications to your own use. Then, for that reason, there came smart contracts and the Ethereum network. Now, blockchain 3.0 is coming up, which is the 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 era of decentralized applications, or dApps as we know it. And dApps is like a conventional app, right? The only difference is its backend code is running on a decentralized network rather than on a centralized server like AWS. Let's look at some types of blockchain. So there are three main types of blockchain out there. One is public, which is permissionless. Then comes private, which is permissioned. And then there is consortium. So what we mean here is public blockchains are open for everyone. So all miners can come up there and they can participate in the network. But a private blockchain is owned by a organization, and only the people which are allowed by that organization are allowed to participate in that blockchain. But a consortium is a mix of public and private blockchain. Basically, it's a consortium blockchain is a blockchain which has which is basically connected. Imagine like two public blockchains connected together via private blockchain. I mean, it is quite confusing to understand it like that. So we'll leave consortium for now because it's a very in-depth concept of blockchain, right? We can focus on these two main concepts because these are the more common terms that are used. So a public blockchain, you can anybody can as I said, participate, and it's publicly owned, and it is almost impossible to hack that because uh, as it is publicly owned, there are the number of nodes are uh, quite high, and it's almost impossible to change any data once it is stored there, right? There is no centralization present there, and some use cases are cryptocurrency, documentation validation, then dApps. All of those are come under public blockchain. Private blockchain, it is basically owned by one organization. It can be tampered because there are the number of nodes are quite less, and they could easily tamper the data if there is a majority consensus with the wrong intention, right? And there is a sense of centralization there, as I said. If uh, if the majority have the wrong uh, the wrong sense of doing things, I would say, then it comes a centralization, right? Uh, Imagine this can be used in supply chain, asset ownership. There are other use cases of private blockchain, right? Now let's see what are the advantages of blockchain, right? So it is open and transparent. It is permanent and immutable. It is free from censorship. It has tighter security. It is more efficient, and it reduces cost. So by open and transparent, I mean it is accessible and transparent to all. Permanent and immutable means you can't change data once it's stored there. It's free from censorship means no one central authority has control over that data. Uh, it has a tighter security because it uses cryptography to encrypt all of the data that is put there. It is more efficient because you don't really need any third party. The network itself acts as a third party, and as it is a computerized software, so the code that is written there is uh, it can't be hampered with. Whereas in a real world scenario, anybody can do harm to you, or have bad intentions or whatever. Uh, it reduces cost, as in you don't need to pay any third party to carry out any transaction, right? So it reduces cost as well. Some of the challenges which is present in today's blockchain technology is uh, scalability issues there, which means the amount of data that can be stored in a single blockchain is only limited to a single MB right now, which is ever increasing. A lot of new blockchain startups and companies are coming up, and uh, uh, ever ever growing that number to a larger number. It is still immature. Blockchain is just few years old. Like, I mean, uh, it's not there yet, I would say, but it is still increasing day by day, right? The energy used is a lot right now because, as you know, to verify transactions in a blockchain, you need all of the nodes to agree to it, which requires a lot of energy. It's a bit of it's time consuming. Again, all of the nodes have to you know agree to a single transaction. That means that it would require a bit of time to for a transaction to get agreed sometimes. Then there are legal formalities, and storage. There's a storage issue in blockchain right now, right? So what that means is blockchain databases are stored in all of the nodes, right? So as in when the transaction number grows, the storage that we need would be higher, because all of the previous data as well is also stored. So the amount of storage requirements will be ever growing as blockchain technology keeps on maturing in its taste. I think we'll keep it till here today. If you guys have any questions, do let me know, and I'll try and explain that concept again.
No questions as of yet. Uh, just trying to grasp everything inside.
Yeah, I think I've moved at a pretty quick uh, pace today. I think we had a bit less time as we started a bit late. So if you have any questions, do let me know about any of the topics that we covered today. And we can discuss them tomorrow as well if you want.
So I have a question related to this. Basically, this web learning. Basically, I just entered using this link on some group. Just wanted to know, like, is there any kind of a program or any sign up that people have done to enter this, or how? Like, because today I got the link, but tomorrow, let's say you have a new link. How can we connect with you?
Look, yeah, there is a link where you have to register. I'm just dropping it right away into the chat. Okay, and do register yourself.
Okay.
And for the link, we make sure to everyone that link won't be changed for the next 4 days more. Like it's a 10 days boot camp, so we try to not to change any link for the same series.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Is there any question left, guys? Okay. Thank you, Manas. Thank you for today's. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.